Good evening, I'm Abe.
And I'm Frank. And tonight, we're celebrating the second half of Chapter 13, The Rise of Mass Democracy, in Kennedy, Cohen, and Bailey's The American Pageant textbook. Abe, take it away.
All right. Jackson wanted to defeat the bus once and for all, so he proposed banning all deposits and shrinking the existing deposits by using them for the day-to-day government expenses. The death of the bus began a cycle of economic booms and busts. Jackson responded by placing funds into pet banks, or state banks supporting Jackson. These pet banks actually damaged the economy more by flooding the country with paper currency of little value. Jackson came to the rescue and saved the economy with the Specie Circular, a decree mandating all public lands to be purchased with metallic money. Now, Frank, could you tell me about the coming of the Whig Party?
Indeed, I can. In Jackson's second term, the modern two-party system was fully developed. Jackson's opponents despised his strong nature and derided him as King Andrew. These detractors went on to form the Whig Party, not because they had no hair, but because they all agreed to fight back against Jackson's control of the government. And they were backing Henry Clay's American system. Now, finally, the U.S. had two strong political parties. Dave, how did Jackson continue to stay in power despite ending his second term?
All right, so Jackson rigged the nominating convention in support of his vice president, Martin Van Buren, since Jackson believed he could serve his third term through Van Buren. The strategy of the Whigs was to run several favorite sons as candidates, as opposed to a single candidate, to scatter the vote so the House would have to choose the president. The Whigs believed they would have a better chance in a House election. Nevertheless, the favorite son, Whig candidate William Henry Harrison, lost against Van Buren, the little magician. Now, Frank, could you tell me more about how important Van Buren's presidency was?
Oh, of course. We're going to spend 2 whole paragraphs on Martin Van Buren before going back and talking about Jackson. So, Van Buren was the first president to have been born after the Revolution, and yet he lacked widespread support from the American people and couldn't even begin to rival Jackson's popularity. Additionally, his decision to steer neutral of the Canadian rebellions in 1837, despite ugly border conflicts, was hated by the average American. After the troubles with paper money, what troubles did America run into next in terms of finance?
All right, so America fell into depression with the Panic of 1837. There were several causes. 1. Rampant speculation, with many people making purchases with borrowed capital. 2. The bank war and Jacksonian Specie Circular, which we already discussed. 3. Wheat crop failure with its subsequent outrageous grain prices. 4. Financial stringency, or the reluctance to spend money. And 5, the collapse of 2 prominent British banks, which making British investors recall their foreign loans. So what were the effects of the panic? Hundreds of banks collapsed, commodity prices fell, land sales decreased, and unemployment rose. The Whigs called for increased tariffs, more bank credit, and grants for internal improvements. But Van Buren rejected all these proposals and passed the divorce bill, which established an independent treasury to keep government funds safe. However, this divorce scheme was completely condemned by the Whigs and was barely supported by Van Buren's fellow Democrats. But Frank, I think it's time that we took a trip down to Rodeo Town to the Lone Star State.
Indeed it is, Abe. Let's look at Gone to Texas, where we see that America, looking to expand, as always, looked to Texas in the wake of Mexico's independence from Spain. Politician Stephen Austin then made a deal with Mexico to bring about 300 American families to settle land in Texas land. The 3 facets of the deal were: first, these American citizens had to become Mexican citizens; 2, they had to embrace Catholicism; and 3, slavery was not allowed. However, in the true spirit of Texas exceptionalism, none of these were followed by the Americans. Continuing on with our glorious state of Texas, Abe, how did they eventually become a state of the United States?
The Texans declared their independence in 1836 with Sam Houston as their leader, but Santa Anna responded ferociously and slaughtered the Texans at the Battle of Alamo. And shortly after, a band of American volunteers were slaughtered again at the Battle of Goliad. Houston's army fought back, however, at the Battle of San Jacinto and captured Santa Anna. Santa Anna signed 2 treaties, agreeing to withdraw Mexican troops, and to also recognize the Rio Grande as Texas's southwestern border. However, he quickly rejected the treaties after he was released. Even though America had previously professed neutrality in all foreign conflicts, Jackson formally recognized the Lone Star Republic. Many wanted Texas to become the newest American state, but anti-slavery activists in the North opposed the annexation since Texas was a slave state. Now, Frank, could you tell me about who succeeded President Jackson?
I certainly can. The man's name was William Harrison, and he was the man the the Whigs had run against the Democrat Martin Van Buren. No one really liked Martin Van Buren. He was known to the Whigs as Martin Van Ruin instead of Martin Van Buren. On the other hand, William Harrison was famous for his work at the Battle of Tippecanoe and the Battle of the Thames in the War of 1812. The Whigs also played Harrison out to be a poor man of the people, a policy division instrumental in his winning of the presidency later that year. How did politics evolve in America by the time of the election of 1840?
Okay, so there were 2 major changes in American politics with the election of 1840. The first of which was a populist democratic style. The aristocracy was looked down upon and democracy became respectable. Politicians had to win the favor of the voting masses by dressing and acting as the common man and forsaking all social pretensions. Overall, American politics began to be centered around the common man. Now, Frank, what were the 2 political parties that developed in this time?
Yeah, so before now, the Democrats bore so many similarities to the Federalists that a true 2-party state was yet to emerge. Now, however, 2 distinct parties had come into focus. The first one was the Democrats, and they glorified individual liberties as well as fighting for states' rights. Remember, this is the group founded by Jefferson, a major proponent of states and individual liberties. They supported the poorer halves of society and were generally from the South and the West. The other half, the Whigs, championed the ideas of American society and the value of community. They wanted a strong national bank, tariffs, and internal improvement spending, as well as government-funded public schools. And they tended to be more aristocratic and a bit wealthier, and they were generally from the East. These 2 parties, the Democrats and the Whigs, made up the 2 fundamental halves of American society by the time of the election of 1840.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.
And comment if you have any questions. We'll catch you guys next time.